What happens when a Hollywood actor known for his calm, icy precision is placed across from a daytime talk show host whose tongue is famous for cutting sharper than any scripted punchline? What happens when the cameras are live, the audience is tense, and a single misunderstood question becomes the spark that ignites a full-blown on-air explosion? Welcome to the moment that would leave millions stunned, producers scrambling, and the studio floor vibrating with the kind of chaotic energy daytime television was never built to contain. And before we unravel this mayhem, make sure to hit the subscribe button for Stage View, drop a like, and tell us in the comments what you predict will unfold. Because what you're about to witness is nothing short of unpredictable, unfiltered, and unforgettable. The studio lights burned bright above the polished stage floor as the View's theme music faded into a controlled roar. The audience clapped in that enthusiastic, almost rehearsed way they always did. But something in the air felt off, like a too-still silence beneath the noise. Jake Gyllenhaal sat in his chair, posture relaxed, hands folded, a faint grin on his face. He looked like a man ready to talk about a film, maybe joke around, maybe deflect a mischievous jab from a host. He had done this 1,000 times. He expected the usual dance, question, smile, clever anecdote. Joy Behar didn't share that calm. She leaned forward even before the cameras had fully adjusted to their positions, her red hair catching reflections from the overhead panels, her eyes narrowed with a glint that hinted at something more personal than professional curiosity. There had been chatter backstage, heated muttering from Joy, an apologetic nod from a frazzled producer, and a whispered warning from a stage assistant. "She's in a mood today, just be ready." Jake had heard the faint echo of it, but brushed it aside. After all, he wasn't new to the volatility of live interviews. But he wasn't ready for this. The show opened as usual. Whoopi offered her warm, grounded welcome. Sunny provided a thoughtful remark. Sarah added a sprinkle of humor. Cameras swung from host to host with well-rehearsed rhythm. And then Joy turned directly toward Jake, and the audience sensed the shift. A rustle moved through the seating, a subtle but unmistakable collective inhale. "So, Jake," Joy said, her voice clipped, almost too casual, "I watched your new film last week. And I have to say, it left me with a lot of questions." Jake smiled politely. "That's good, I think. A film should make people think." "Oh, it made me think," Joy continued. "In fact, it made me think you've been taking yourself a little too seriously lately." There it was. The first spark. Jake blinked, the smile faltering just enough to expose a trace of confusion. I'm not sure what you mean." Joy shrugged theatrically, eliciting a few uneasy chuckles from the audience. "Well, actors disappear into their roles, get method, get intense. But sometimes they get, what's the word?" She tapped her fingers on the desk. "Pretentious." The air tightened. Even Whoopi shifted slightly, her eyes darting toward Joy in a silent warning. "Really?" Jake's jaw tightened, though he kept his voice even. "I think every actor has their own process. For me, I just try to commit fully to whatever role I'm playing." "Commit fully," Joy echoed. "Right." The way she said it, flat, dismissive, was a deliberate provocation. The audience felt it. They murmured, glanced at one another, unsure whether they were witnessing playful banter or something more dangerous. The floor manager made a subtle gesture behind the cameras, a slow circular motion that usually meant, "Keep it light, move it along." But Joy wasn't looking at anyone except Jake. "So tell me," she said, leaning forward, "do you ever stop and think, maybe I should just relax a bit? Maybe I don't need to go so overboard?" Jake's smile faded completely. His brows drew together, and he released a slow breath before answering. "Joy, I take my craft seriously because I love what I do. I don't know if I'd call that overboard." Joy smirked. "Well, some people might." "Who?" Jake shot back, sharper now. "You." A few audible gasps rippled through the audience. Sarah's eyes widened. Sunny bit down on her lip. Whoopi leaned forward slightly, as if preparing for impact. Joy chuckled, but it was humorless. "Look, I'm just saying what a lot of people think." Jake tilted his head. "Are you sure you're not just saying what you think?" The audience reacted with an "oh," like a classroom witnessing its strictest teacher finally get challenged by the one student who never speaks up. Joy raised an eyebrow, clearly not backing down. "I'm a host, Jake. My job is to speak my mind. And if an actor seems a little full of himself, I'm allowed to point it out." Jake stared at her, his eyes cooling. "And I'm allowed to defend myself." The tension was building fast, too fast, and the other hosts sensed it. Whoopi attempted to interject. Okay, let's." Joy talked over her. Defend yourself? All I said was the truth. Jake's voice dropped, low and measured. Your truth isn't the truth. The audience reacted again, louder, unsure whether to laugh or recoil. The temperature on the stage felt like it was rising. Even those watching from home would later describe sensing something was unraveling before their eyes. Joy crossed her arms. Oh, please. You actors come on this show. Throw around your deep insight like you're delivering wisdom from a mountaintop. Jake's composure cracked. That's unfair. You're putting words in my mouth. Are you going to tell me how to do my job now? Joy snapped. The crowd let out a sharp, collective breath. Now it was personal. Whoopi stepped in once more, hands raised. Joy, maybe we should. But Jake cut in, his tone more forceful now. I'm here to talk about a film, not have my character attacked. Joy wasn't having it. Character? I'm talking about your attitude. Jake leaned forward, eyes locked on hers. You don't know anything about my attitude. Joy shot back instantly. Maybe I know more than you think. There was a dangerous pause. A moment where time seemed to compress, the lights too bright, the silence too sharp. Then Jake spoke carefully, every word deliberate. Joy, if you have a real question, ask it. If you're just trying to provoke me because you're having a bad day, then say that. The audience erupted, half-shocked laughter, half pure disbelief. Joy's expression stiffened, her eyes narrowing as if he had crossed an invisible line. Excuse me? You heard me, Jake said. And who do you think you're talking to? She demanded. Jake's reply came without hesitation. Someone who's being disrespectful. It was the kind of moment that producers dread. The kind of moment that can derail an interview, a segment, even an entire show. The camera operators exchanged wary glances. A production assistant took a step forward, then stopped, unsure whether approaching would make things worse. Joy leaned back, her jaw tight, and for a second she didn't speak. But the silence was more volatile than her earlier jabs. When she finally did speak, it wasn't loud, but it was sharp enough to cut through the air like glass. If you can't handle a question, she said slowly, maybe you shouldn't come on live TV. Jake's voice was a whisper, but a fierce one. If you can't respect your guests, maybe you shouldn't host live TV. The audience reacted louder than before. This wasn't play fighting anymore. This was a collision. Sarah attempted to throw a lifeline. Maybe we can talk about the training you did for the role? I heard it was pretty intense. Jake didn't look away from Joy. Joy didn't look away from Jake. It felt like Sarah's words were distant, muffled, like someone trying to calm two storm fronts from the middle of a hurricane. Joy finally tore her gaze away and laughed, a single, sharp note. Look at you, getting all sensitive. I'm not sensitive, Jake said. I'm standing up for myself. Joy rolled her eyes. Oh, please. You actors think everything's a dramatic scene. Jake's jaw flexed. Maybe stop turning interviews into confrontations. Joy's voice rose. Maybe stop acting like you're too good for a little criticism. And now the audience went silent, not gasping, not murmuring, just frozen. Jake took a breath, stared at her for a long moment, and then said quietly, This isn't criticism. This is hostility. Joy opened her mouth to respond, but Whoopi finally clapped her hands loudly, commanding attention. All right, you two. Let's bring it down before our producers start throwing things. The audience laughed nervously, but the tension remained thick. Joy leaned back in her chair, lips pressed tight, her annoyance now unmistakable. Jake exhaled, visibly struggling to regain composure, running a hand through his hair as he looked out toward the audience, searching perhaps for an anchor in the chaos. But the producers, watching from just off stage, knew it wasn't over. Something inside Joy was still smoldering. Something inside Jake was simmering too, anger, disbelief, maybe even hurt. One wrong word could easily push this into dangerous territory. And that wrong word was coming. Jake looked back at Joy, calmer now but still firm. Look, I didn't come here to fight. Joy muttered, could have fooled me. Jake heard it. Everyone heard it. He closed his eyes for a moment. Joy. She didn't wait. Maybe next time bring a sense of humor with you. Jake looked at her, directly, and for the first time, the mask of professionalism slipped away completely. His voice cracked, not with weakness, but with the raw edge of someone finally pushed too far. You don't know me. You don't know what I bring. The audience leaned in. Joy stared at him, something flickering behind her eyes. Anger, yes, but something else too. Challenge. Defiance. Then show us, she said. And part one ends with the room thickening with a tension so sharp, so electrically charged, the audience could practically feel the heat radiating from the stage floor. Jake inhaled, Joy locked her gaze on him, and for a brief second, no one, a host, a camera operator, an audience member, knew what would happen next. The silence that draped over the studio did not feel like the kind that followed a question. It felt like the kind that followed a spark landing in dry brush. Every breath, every heartbeat, every nervous shift from the audience added to the pressure building between Jake and Joy. Somewhere in the control room, a producer whispered a frantic, "We need to cut to commercial." But the director didn't dare, because the camera was catching lightning, and no one in television willingly interrupts lightning. Jake didn't move at first. His expression was unreadable: anger, restraint, confusion, frustration. But all held tightly, like he was gripping the edges of a cliff to keep himself from falling. Joy sat across from him, unmoving as well, but her posture was different. Defensive. Coiled. She stared at him like she was waiting for him to slip, to snap, to break the facade that Hollywood interviews always demanded. The other hosts watched with wide, uneasy eyes, their instincts screaming that this wasn't standard television drama. This was something else, something raw, something almost too real for daytime TV. Finally, Jake spoke, and his voice was soft, but the softness only amplified the volatility underneath it. "You want me to show you?" he asked, not as a challenge, but as a warning. Joy crossed one leg over the other, her smirk thin and tight. "Isn't that why you're here? Promote your movie. Show people whatever it is you do." The audience let out a collective wince. They didn't know whose side they were on, if they were even supposed to choose a side, but they knew they were witnessing a collision that wasn't slowing down. Jake's hands curled into fists and loosened again, as if he were grounding himself. "Joy," he said slowly, "there's a difference between asking questions and attacking someone's work." "Oh, please," she shot back. "Since when can't actors handle criticism? You all do these press tours expecting applause at every stop." "I don't expect applause," Jake snapped, louder than he intended. "I expect respect." That landed like a slap. Joy leaned in, her eyes narrowing. "Respect goes both ways, you know." "And I have been respectful," Jake said, meeting her glare head-on. "But you're not asking questions. You're making jabs." Joy's laugh was short, sharp. "It's a talk show, Jake, not a therapy session." "And yet here we are," Jake murmured. "You poking, prodding, pushing. Why? Did I do something to you?" Joy's jaw tightened. For a moment, something flickered across her face. Vulnerability? No, too quick, too guarded. But something was there, hidden beneath the fire. Whoopi cleared her throat loudly, trying once again to steer the show back to safer waters. "Let's all take a breath. We're live. We're professionals. Let's bring this back." Joy cut her off with a dismissive wave. "I'm fine, Whoopi. I'm asking questions." "You're provoking him," Sarah muttered under her breath, but her mic caught it. The audience reacted again, soft murmurs, surprise, tension. Joy's head snapped toward Sarah. "I'm doing my job. And I'm trying to keep the show from melting down," Sarah said, more firmly now. "There's a difference." Joy inhaled sharply, as if offended by the suggestion that she wasn't in total control. She turned back to Jake. "Do you feel attacked? Is that what this is?" Jake's lips twitched into something between a grim smile and a flinch. "Do I feel attacked?" "Joy, you called me pretentious within the first minute. It was an observation. It was disrespectful. Then maybe you shouldn't give off that vibe." Jake stared at her, stunned. "That vibe? Are you hearing yourself?" Before Joy could fire back, a woman in the audience gasped loudly, covering her mouth. It broke the tension just enough for Jake to look away, to see the shocked faces, the nervous glances, the hands gripping the edges of chairs. Jake exhaled slowly. He didn't want to be here. He didn't want this moment to define the interview, or worse, spiral beyond it. He turned back to Joy, softer this time. "Look, I didn't come here to fight with you." Joy's expression didn't change. "Then stop turning everything into a fight." "I'm not," Jake whispered. "But you are." The room went still again. Joy opened her mouth, but the words didn't come out right away. A second too long. A hesitation that felt significant. And that was when Sunny finally entered the fray, her voice measured, calm, but firm. "Joy, maybe we should give Jake space to talk about the film. Because the audience wants to hear about it. That's why he's here." Joy's eyes shot to Sunny, irritation flashing. "I know why he's here." "Then let him speak," Sunny said. Jake looked between them, Joy's rigid posture, Sunny's quiet steadiness, and for a moment his anger softened. He nodded slightly, as if grateful for the lifeline. I'd love to talk about the film, he said, if that's still an option. Joy lifted her chin. Then go ahead. I'm listening. But her tone said otherwise. Jake took a breath. He tried. It's a story about a man dealing with grief, about how trauma can twist a person, push them to extremes. Joy interrupted. You like those roles, don't you? Intense. Brooding. Pain all over your face. Jake's shoulders tensed. They're complex characters. Or maybe you just like the attention, Joy said. Okay, enough, Sarah blurted, unable to stay silent any longer. Joy, what's going on with you today? Joy stiffened. Nothing. Really? Because it feels personal, Sarah said. It's not personal, Joy snapped. Jake watched her carefully. Then what is it? Joy hesitated again, just long enough for the audience to notice. Her eyes flickered, unfocused for a moment, as if she were searching for an answer. When she spoke, her voice was quieter, but still sharp. I'm just doing my job. That's all. Jake studied her. Something was off. He wasn't imagining it. Behind the irritation, behind the jabs, behind the sharp edges, there was something else. Something deeper. But Joy wasn't about to let anyone see it. She drew her shoulders back and forced her voice into a colder, harder tone. Now answer the question. Jake blinked. What question? Joy gestured dismissively. About the film. About why you take everything so seriously. About why you're always so intense. Jake shook his head slowly. Joy, I'm not always intense. I just don't appreciate being mocked on live TV. Joy rolled her eyes dramatically. Oh, stop. You're exaggerating. Jake's voice lowered. You're minimizing. The audience reacted again. It was no longer the playful wave of reactions typical of talk show drama. This was real discomfort. Whoopi raised both hands. All right, let's all breathe. Jake, Joy, this is going sideways. Joy's voice shot back with an edge. I don't need to breathe. Jake replied instantly, maybe you should. The audience let out a collective gasp that shook the room. Joy's mouth fell open, disbelief and anger mixing into something volatile. She turned towards him, her voice trembling with hostility. Excuse me? Jake didn't back down. You heard me. Sunny and Sarah exchanged a terrified glance. Whoopi closed her eyes, muttering something under her breath that sounded a lot like, Lord, give me strength. Joy leaned forward, voice low, dangerous. You don't talk to me like that. You don't talk to me like you did, Jake countered. The tension had reached a breaking point, and even the cameras seemed to tremble. The room felt too small, too hot, too fragile. Like any louder word might cause the whole set to crack in half. And then something unexpected happened. A man in the audience stood up abruptly. Hey, he shouted. Everyone turned. Stop fighting, he yelled, voice trembling. This is the view. Not a boxing match or something. His outburst was so abrupt, so raw, that it shocked the entire room into silence. Jake blinked, surprised. Joy's face froze mid-expression. The man continued, his voice cracking. We came here to watch a show, not this. A producer rushed over to him, whispering urgently for him to sit down. But the damage, or perhaps the relief, was already done. His words hung in the air, forcing everyone on stage to see themselves through the eyes of the audience. Jake looked away, rubbing the back of his neck. Joy stared at her desk, her breathing uneven for just a moment before she regained control. The man sat back down, trembling, murmuring apologies as the audience whispered in shock. Jake exhaled slowly. He's right, he said quietly. This is out of control. Joy's voice came out tense and thin. Maybe. But you. I'm not your enemy, Jake said, cutting her off, but softer now, almost pleading. I'm really not. Joy's expression faltered again, just a flicker, but noticeable. Vulnerability. Hurt. Maybe regret. But before she could answer, the director finally made the call no one wanted to make earlier. Cut to commercial. A disembodied voice barked through the speakers. The lights shifted. The audience exhaled collectively. Music swelled abruptly, awkwardly. The hosts froze in their forced smiles as the live broadcast ended. And the moment the red light on the camera turned off, the room erupted. Not in applause, not in chaos, but in stunned, suffocating silence. But the explosion hadn't happened yet. It was coming. And everyone, hosts, audience, producers, felt the rumble beneath their feet. The second the cameras cut, it felt as if the air was sucked out of the studio. The music faded, the applause sign dimmed, and the forced smiles on the hosts' faces collapsed into expressions of shock, frustration, and disbelief. No one spoke at first, Not the hosts, not the producers rushing onto the stage, not the audience members still frozen in their seats. It was as if the entire room had been holding its breath, waiting for permission to exhale. Jake leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temple with the heel of his palm. His chest rose and fell unevenly, the adrenaline still pulsing through him. Joy sat rigid, hands clenched together so tightly her knuckles were white. She stared straight ahead, refusing to look at him, at the producers swarming around her, or even at her co-hosts. One of the stage managers approached her cautiously. "Joy, do you want a moment backstage?" His voice trembled slightly, as though approaching an unpredictable storm cloud. "I'm fine," Joy said sharply, though her voice betrayed a slight tremor. Another producer stepped forward, whispering urgently into her ear. "We need to regroup. This is going off the rails. Please, let's talk this through." Joy waved him away. "I said I'm fine." Jake watched the exchange, his jaw clenching again. Something inside him felt heavy, a mix of lingering anger and a gnawing, unexpected sense of guilt. He didn't want it to be this kind of confrontation. He was used to tense interviews, invasive questions, clashing personalities. But this was different. This felt personal in a way he couldn't fully understand. Sunny stood up from her chair, stepping between Jake and Joy like a barrier meant to keep two magnets from snapping back together explosively. "Let's all calm down," she said, though her voice trembled slightly too. "We can salvage this. We just need to breathe." Jake shook his head. "I wasn't trying to." "I know," Sunny interrupted gently. "But right now, the more you talk, the more this escalates." Sarah hovered nearby, wide-eyed and pale. "I've never seen anything like this. Not on the show. Not anywhere." Whoopi, usually the grounding force, sank back into her chair with a long, tired sigh. "I need a drink," she muttered. "Or a nap. Or an exorcism." The remark pulled a few nervous laughs from the others, but Joy didn't even twitch. She sat stiff and still as a statue, the tension radiating off her like heat from a flame. Jake glanced at her. "Joy," he said cautiously, "look, I'm sorry if I came in defensive. I didn't mean to disrespect you." Joy didn't respond. He sighed and leaned forward. "But you came at me really hard. I didn't understand why." Still nothing. A producer crouched beside her. "Joy, please. Can you just step backstage for a moment so we can—" Her head whipped toward him. "Stop treating me like I'm fragile." The producer recoiled. I'm not. You are," she said. "I'm fine." Jake watched the exchange with growing discomfort. He couldn't shake the feeling that something deeper was clawing beneath her sharp words, something that had nothing to do with him. Or at least not everything to do with him. Finally, Joy stood abruptly, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. The noise made several audience members flinch. "I'm going backstage," she announced, her voice loud and brittle. "But not because I need to. Because you all clearly think I can't handle this conversation." She walked off before anyone could say another word. Jake exhaled, deflated. The room felt colder now, emptier without her presence, even if her presence had been volatile. Sarah turned to Jake. "What happened between you two? Seriously." "I don't know," Jake said honestly. "It's like she was angry with me before I even said a word." "Maybe she's dealing with something," Sunny offered. "Maybe," Jake said, though his voice betrayed doubt. A few assistants ushered the audience into a brief break, offering water and reassurances that the show would continue shortly. Their voices were polite but strained, betraying the anxiety gripping the entire production team. Jake stood up and stretched, pacing a few steps before a producer approached him. "Jake, we need to figure out how to handle the next segment," she said in a low voice. "If you want, we can tone down the interview. Keep it light. Move past the tension." Jake nodded. "Yeah, that's fine. I don't want this to blow up." The producer's expression tightened. It already did. A stagehand approached Jake hesitantly. Joy wants to talk to you." "Backstage." Jake blinked. "Seriously?" "Yes," she said now. The producer's eyes widened. "Are you sure that's a good idea?" Jake didn't know if it was. Every instinct told him this was dangerous territory. But another part of him, the part driven by empathy rather than frustration, felt compelled to go. "I'll go," he said. "Maybe we can clear the air before we're live again." He followed the stagehand down the narrow hallway leading behind the set. The sounds of rustling equipment, headset chatter, and muffled studio noise faded as he approached the small, dimly lit backstage lounge. Joy stood near the counter, her back toward him, both hands gripping the edges as though holding herself together. Jake paused before entering fully. Joy. She didn't turn around. Her voice came out low. Close the door. He did. For a moment, neither spoke. Jake watched Joy's shoulders rise and fall with uneven breaths. The harsh, combative woman from moments ago looked different now, smaller, almost fragile. Jake stepped closer, cautiously. You wanted to talk. She nodded but didn't move. Jake tried again. Look, I'm not here to argue, or to make anything worse. Still nothing. He exhaled, running a hand through his hair. Joy, I don't know what happened out there. I just know it felt wrong. And I don't want to walk back on stage with all that hanging over us. Joy finally turned. Her eyes were red, not from crying, but from holding something back with too much force. She looked at him without her usual steel, without the armor she carried on stage. It wasn't about you, she said quietly. Jake's brow furrowed. Then what was it? Joy shook her head. It doesn't matter. It clearly does. Joy inhaled sharply. I was already on edge. Before the show. Before you even arrived. Jake softened. Because of something personal? She nodded but didn't elaborate. Jake waited, giving her space. Joy swallowed hard. This morning I got a call. My sister's in the hospital. Jake's expression changed instantly. The anger evaporated from his eyes. Joy, I'm sorry. I didn't want to cancel the show, she said, her voice cracking for the first time. I thought working would distract me. I thought I could push it down long enough to get through the day. Jake stepped closer, his tone gentle. And then I walked in. Joy gave him a broken, humorless smile. And then you walked in, with your serious actor energy and your intense eyes, and everything I'd been holding down just came up. And I took it out on you. Jake exhaled deeply, the weight of understanding settling on him. Joy, you should have told someone. I didn't want to be seen as weak, she whispered. I'm always the tough one. The loud one. The sharp one. Jake shook his head slowly. Being human isn't weak. Joy looked away, shoulders trembling. I'm sorry, Jake. I was unfair to you. Cruel, even. I shouldn't have said those things. Jake stepped closer, placing a gentle hand on her arm. She didn't pull away. It's okay, he said softly. Really, I didn't understand what you were going through. Joy blinked rapidly, fighting to contain her emotions. We can go back out there. We can finish the show. Just don't mention this. Please. I don't want my life to become the headline. Jake nodded. Of course. But the universe had other plans. Because while Joy and Jake shared their quiet, fragile moment backstage, the door suddenly burst open. A frantic production assistant rushed in, eyes wide with panic. Joy! Jake! She gasped. Something's happened. Joy straightened instantly. What? The assistant pointed toward the hallway, her voice trembling. The audience, they're shouting. Yelling. Someone recorded the whole on-air fight on their phone. It's already online. Jake's stomach dropped. Already? The assistant nodded. It's going viral. Right now. And people are going crazy. Joy's face fell, fear flickering in her eyes. What are they saying? You won't like it, the assistant whispered. Jake exchanged a look with Joy, heavy, knowing, brittle. And then the assistant delivered the final blow. They're saying you two are about to have the biggest meltdown in daytime TV history. And the whole internet is watching to see what happens next. Jake exhaled. Joy closed her eyes. The explosion wasn't over. It was about to hit its peak. The hallway buzzed with frantic voices as Joy and Jake stepped out of the small backstage room, their uneasy truce still fresh and fragile. The noise was overwhelming. Stage managers talking over one another, assistants darting back and forth with headsets pressed to their ears, the low rumble of hundreds of audience members who had just witnessed something unforgettable. But beneath all of it, there was something else. A tension that vibrated through the air, a boiling electricity sparked by millions of eyes watching the viral clip online. Joy paused, her hand gripping the wall for balance, as if the chaos around her was making the ground tilt. Jake moved closer, worry softening his features. Are you okay? No, she admitted quietly, her voice trembling. But I will be. We just need to get through the next segment. Jake nodded. Together. A producer rushed over. We're going live in 40 seconds, 40. We need both of you on stage now. And please keep it civil. We're already trending #1 nationwide. Joy's face paled. For what? The producer swallowed. For the fight. People are calling it the View meltdown. Some are siding with you. Some with Jake. Some are just enjoying the chaos. Another assistant approached, breathless. And sponsors are calling. Some want reassurance. Some want to pull their ads. Joy's stomach dropped. Jake exhaled in disbelief. Over this? Seriously? You don't understand, the producer said. This is daytime TV. One spark can burn the whole house down if we don't manage it right. The assistant tugged at the producer's sleeve. We have to go. The countdown is starting. Joy straightened, inhaling deeply as she tried to pull the pieces of herself together. Jake offered her a small nod, an anchor she didn't expect but desperately needed. They walked out onto the stage. The audience was buzzing, whispers, gasps, nervous laughter. Some people clutched their phones, watching the viral clip over and over again. Others whispered arguments about who was in the wrong. The moment Jake and Joy appeared, the entire room shifted. A wave of murmurs swept across the studio, turning into a sharp hush as the red recording light blinked on once more. The view was live again. Whoopi, Sunny, and Sarah all shifted in their seats, bracing themselves for whatever was about to unfold. Their expressions hovered somewhere between cautious optimism and pure dread. Whoopi opened the segment with the same warm voice she used to calm turbulent waters. Welcome back, everyone. Before the break, things got a little heated. A ripple of uneasy laughter spread through the audience. And we want to take a moment, Whoopi continued, to reset, breathe, and continue our conversation respectfully. Jake nodded, his posture controlled. He looked at Joy, offering her a small, reassuring glance. She attempted to return it, but her jaw trembled ever so slightly. Joy leaned forward, clearing her throat. Her voice was steady, though her hands shook slightly as she gripped the desk. Let's start over. Jake, I think we got off on the wrong foot. Jake's voice was gentle. I agree, and I'd like to move past that. The room exhaled, a collective release of tension. But the universe wasn't finished. From the back row of the audience, a voice suddenly pierced the delicate silence. Why don't you just admit you hate him, Joy? Gasps shot through the studio like shrapnel. Jake's eyes widened. Joy froze. Security began moving toward the man, but he shouted louder before they could reach him. You were totally out of line. You attacked him for no reason. Just say it. Joy's face crumpled. I know, that's not. Another voice chimed in from the middle of the crowd. Jake was right to call you out. You were being rude. But then another voice yelled. Joy was doing her job. Stop bullying her. Voices collided. The room filled with overlapping shouts, echoing off the studio walls. Jake was the problem. No, Joy started it. You both were wrong. This is entertainment. Keep going. Whoopi slammed her hand on the table, shouting over them. Hey, this is not a shouting match. But the audience had spiraled out of control. Phones were raised everywhere, recording the chaos. Some people stood. Others pointed. Others shouted accusations or defenses, transforming the studio into a live battleground of clashing opinions. Sarah covered her mouth. Sunny shook her head, stunned. Jake stood up, hands raised, trying to calm the crowd. Please, everyone, just stop. His voice boomed across the room, strong enough to cut through the noise. But it was too late. Joy stood abruptly, her chair nearly tipping behind her. Stop attacking me, she shouted into the audience. The room fell silent at once. Joy was trembling, not with anger now, but with something more raw, more exposed. She blinked rapidly, trying to hold herself together. I know everyone saw what happened before, she said, voice shaking. I know it looked like I was picking a fight, but you don't know what I'm dealing with today. You don't know what I walked into this morning. Her voice wavered. The audience leaned in. My sister is in the hospital, and I haven't been able to think straight all day. Her voice cracked. And instead of taking time for myself, I came here and took it out on someone who didn't deserve it. Jake took a step closer. Joy didn't look at him, but she felt the gesture, support, not confrontation. Joy wiped her eyes with a trembling hand. I made a mistake. A big one. And I'm sorry. Silence. Heavy. Thick. But not hostile. Jake turned toward Joy, speaking softly enough that only the mics captured it clearly. Thank you for saying that. You didn't have to. But you did. Joy met his gaze for the first time since they'd gone live again. Her eyes were wet, the anger gone, replaced by exhaustion and honesty. I meant it, Jake. Jake nodded. And for what it's worth. I'm sorry, too. I pushed back harder than I should have. The audience softened. Some murmured empathetically. Some nodded. Some lowered their phones, no longer eager to exploit the moment. A warmth returned to the room, shaky but real. But then, unpredictably, someone shouted from the front row. This is all staged, isn't it? You're actors. She's an actress. You're manipulating us for ratings. Joy's head snapped toward the voice. Are you kidding me right now? Jake's expression twisted with disbelief. None of this is staged. The person scoffed loudly. Oh, please. Crying on cue? Drama? You think we're stupid? Jake stepped forward, eyes hardening just a little. This is real. Everything you saw is real. And that's exactly the problem with live TV. It doesn't let you hide. Joy added, I wouldn't choose to humiliate myself for ratings. The audience member shrugged, unconvinced. But before anything else could ignite, Whoopi placed a gentle hand on Joy's shoulder, grounding her. Enough, Whoopi said softly. We're not doing this anymore. The room went still. She looked at Jake. And you. Thank you for staying. For handling this with grace. Jake nodded, humbled. Whoopi turned to the audience. And all of you. This is a reminder that the people sitting at this table are human beings. They mess up. They get emotional. They have bad days. They break sometimes. And you know what? That's okay. Joy let out a quiet, shaky breath. Jake reached over and gave her shoulder a reassuring squeeze. She didn't recoil. Not this time. As the moment settled, the floor director signaled that they had 1 minute before the end of the segment. 1 minute to gather themselves, to close the chaos with clarity. Jake turned to the camera, his voice steady. What happened today was messy, emotional, real. And I think it's important that we show that real moments, even uncomfortable ones, don't have to end in division. Joy nodded, though her eyes were still watery. We can disagree. We can have bad moments. But we can also talk. Apologize. Understand each other. Sunny added, that's what we should take away from this. Sarah chimed in softly, not the fight. The resolution. Whoopi ended it, her voice calm and wise. And with that, we're going to take a breath, take a break, and remind everyone watching, be kind. You never know what someone else is carrying. The music rose. The red recording light faded. The studio fell into a hush again, but this time a gentler one. A reflective one. Phones buzzed. Notifications flooded. The meltdown clip had already reached millions. But so had the reconciliation. Headlines were forming in real time. Social media reactions ranged from shock to anger to empathy. The View had become the center of the internet universe for the day. Backstage, Joy and Jake walked together slowly, side by side. You didn't have to defend me, Joy said quietly. Jake shrugged softly. You didn't have to apologize. Joy looked at him, a small, grateful smile forming. Thank you. Anytime, Jake said. And somewhere behind them, producers exhaled, hosts regrouped, and the internet kept spinning its web of opinions, memes, and commentary. The digital wildfire that always followed explosive moments in modern media. But one thing was certain. Everyone who witnessed that moment, on set or online, would be talking about it for days. Maybe weeks. Maybe forever. And now the story was yours. So if you're watching this on Stage View, let us know in the comments. Whose side were you on? What do you think really happened beneath the surface of that on-air explosion? And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share for more dramatic deep dives, cinematic breakdowns, and explosive behind-the-scenes stories. Only on Stage View.